Anybody need one? Raise your hand. Chuck will get one to you. Okay. Now, I've said this so that you're tired of me saying it, but basically a parable has one meaning, one lesson, one whatever that we're supposed to draw from it. However, we are able to look and maybe learn some other things as well. And as I've said before, preachers usually like to have 3 points on their sermons, so every parable's got to have 3 points somewhere in there. They've got to figure that out. So we're going to be able to talk about these 2 parables and learn some things. Part of our learning has to do with differences in cultures and things like that. For instance, I heard something or said today to me, and I hadn't heard it in a while, but you can't get blood out of a turnip. Anybody ever heard that? Okay. You're revealing how old you are. So, but what would that mean in another culture? Shoo, just go right over their head, wouldn't mean a thing. So as we study these parables, that's what we have to understand, is we have to kind of learn what was being said as the parables were going along. The parables are told apparently apart, and I'll say this again. Jesus was 4.5 years in his ministry, and he basically had the same message. So what does that mean? That means he's repeating himself a lot. So it's not unusual that there would be the repetition. Repetition is also not unusual that there would be some variety, that he might slant it a little differently for one crowd than he might for another crowd. So the point is still there. The message is still there. So the way they measured money or valuables is a little different than the way we do. Those of you who have traveled, you know if you go to England, they've got different terms over there. How much is a British pound? You have to go to the money exchange rate chart and figure it out, wouldn't you? And then it used to be like $3.50 per pound, but now they're almost even. They're getting very close.
And it changes daily.
Oh yeah, and it changes daily. In Kenya, a shilling is basically $1, but it takes 100 shillings to make a U.S. dollar. So, I was saying today in an email I was writing that when I was a kid, a comic book was a dime. And I think today, if they still make them, they're probably around $5. I don't know. Obviously, I haven't bought one in a long time. But money, I like it when we're reading it. I like it when we're given something that allows us to understand. For instance, how much is a pound? Okay, but in the money terms, when you're talking about pounds, how much are we talking about? How did you come up with that number? Okay. Is that a British pound? Okay. But how much is a New Testament pound that he's talking about here? Or a talent?
A talent is like 3 days of wages. 1 day.
No.
No, a talent is a lot more.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're talking about the minute. Yeah. Yeah. And when it tells us like how many months' wages, that gives us something to relate to.
It's basically millions of dollars.
Well, a talent would be. Yeah. Yeah. A talent is, let's see, I got a note here somewhere. I think it's 71 pounds of gold, something like that. And today gold is how much an ounce? Yeah, so we're talking about a lot of money. So all of these, we have to have some understanding of the value for it to really, click with us. How much is a denarii?
A day's wage.
1 day's wage. So these are things that it's good for us, not necessarily to translate, because denarii tells me nothing, but I need the understanding of what that equals to. I think I mentioned recently in here that when I graduated, I was a senior in high school, about to graduate and go to college, just turned 18. Maybe I had graduated. My father, I want you to meet a man today. We're going to meet with this guy. And so, okay, so I go in there, and we sit down. He has an insurance man come in, and he buys a $5,000 policy, life insurance policy on me. And he says, I'll pay this until you get out of college, then you got to pay it. You got to pick it up after then. Well, that may not sound very much now, but in that era, back in the dark ages, that was above the average salary per year. So basically, my dad gave me an insurance policy that had I died, I guess until I got married, it would go to him. I think he was the beneficiary. But $5,000 was a lot of money back then. So as we're talking about these talents, let's understand that for the most part, we're talking about a lot of money. It may not seem a whole lot to us, but it was to them. All right, the denarii was a day's wage. A pound a minute would be valued at about 100 denarii, or approximately 3 months' wages. The talent would be 6,000 denarii, or 20 years' wage. Right there in that first paragraph, or second. All right, how does the nobleman's trip dampen the idea for a quick arrival of the kingdom of God? I'm assuming you've read this parable.
Well, he was leaving to go to a distant country. And he did not travel fast back then. He did not get on a jet. Airplane was flying. Most of the travel on the west was costing water was not good. So if you're going to a distant land and you tarry there, you're not going to be back anytime soon.
Yeah. You're going to walk for the most part. If you do have a camel or some other beast of burden, it's going to be carrying your stuff. It's just like, when you see a movie where their wagon trains are going west and the people are walking. Do you know why they're walking? The wagon is full. It's not for carrying people. It's for carrying your organs and cooking ware and all this stuff you're taking with you. The wagons are full. There's no room for people in the wagon. So you basically walked from wherever it was, Mississippi River, where was not Mississippi, yeah. But anyhow, to California. That's a long way to walk. So it took a while. All right? So how does this have to do with the coming of the Lord? Little conjecture here.
What he was doing is telling them that the Lord was going away and that they had his teachings right now to learn and to live by. And when he came back, he's going to expect them to have been productive and he's going to expect them to pay back.
Okay. Yeah, he's going to expect them to have a return on his investment. I've mentioned before, you may not remember, but I think it was before I was born, so it's been a long time ago. There was a guy that got people all excited about Jesus coming back right away, and he got them to sell their homes, their possessions, and they dressed in white robes, and they went up on this mountain and this hill in Arkansas, and some of them even climbed up in trees because they wanted to be quick to, be there quick for Jesus. like that extra 10 feet is going to be all that different. But anyway, they were so anxious for Jesus to come. What did that do to their... Yeah, it made them look silly, that's for sure. But what did it do for their faith example, for their serving, the mission of Christ? It distracted them, didn't it? Now, they thought everything's really was, going to be good, and they were looking forward to it, but they were so busy getting ready and going up there, they weren't telling anybody else. For me, part of the issue here is Jesus can come back at any time, but we don't need to expect him, to come in such a way that we don't do our work, don't do our job. I don't know if I'm not communicating what I want to say. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and I missed that opportunity, or
Yeah.
I didn't go out and see, well, you guys passed one
Yeah.
time.
Then the illustration finally came to me in this sense. We're supposed to sow the seed. All right, you're here. You got the bag of seed. There's the field you're supposed to sow, but you're not sowing because you're standing over here looking. You think Jesus is going to be, popping over the corner, over the hill just any minute. So rather than sowing the seed, we're spending all of our time looking over here. And we need to be looking to the field to sow the seed. Go ahead.
I think the whole point of this is there is nobody going to heaven that is going to heaven by themselves.
Okay.
You've got to bring somebody with you.
Be sharing the word. All right, number 2. Who does the nobleman represent? Yeah. Represents Jesus or the divine. Daniel? Yes?
Like Vince was saying, sometimes you keep doing bad things, you just gotta have it and refuse to break that habit. God says, if you keep doing it, I'm not gonna bless you.
All right. What was the purpose now? The next question. What's the purpose of the nobleman's trip in this parable? All right, to allow them to do the job. All right. So who does that represent? Looks like it could represent Jesus, yeah. So he is already a powerful man because he owns the land and he's hired these people. But now he's going to go, and when he comes back, he's going to be even more powerful. So we're talking and dealing about Jesus Christ and his relationship with us. Brother John mentioned humility in his prayer a moment ago. And I'm not sure that we'll ever grasp in this life all about Jesus Christ. But one of the things I don't think we understand about humility is how far he came down. You know, we're out here and we step off one step in our humility range, and we say, well, you know, I'm humble. Okay. Jesus didn't step off one step. He stepped off a skyscraper. And his humility is so much more than what we can imagine what we're doing. But he is coming back as king. What? Yeah. 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 He accepted. Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about humility. Think of the extreme, from the supreme top to the supreme bottom. All right, next question says, calculate the amount of money that each servant received.
Well, the ones who received 10, oh, you say minus or minus?
Minus.
I calculated right, that's 1,000 denarii, which is 30-month wage.
Mm-hmm.
3.5 years. The 5-talent man, the talent is 30,000 denarii, which is 100 years wage.
So, what's the so-called average salary today? Yeah, I actually think it's a little more than that, but you know, there's extremes. Averages don't matter a whole lot because there's average and then there's what they call the mean. But anyway, let's round it to 40 just to make it easy, even numbers. How many years?
Talking about the talents, 5 talents is 30,000 denarii, 100 years wage. 2 talents equals 40 years wage. Talking about the minus, it's 1,000 denarii, 30 months wage.
Okay. So, 2.5 years. Adds up to a lot of money, doesn't it? Adds up to a lot of money. But whose money is it? Yeah, it's not their money. They're given that money to do something with it, but it's not their money. Now, today, if someone gives you a gift, what are you doing? You're giving them the control. You're giving them what it is. And if let's say you give somebody $1,000 and you come back and say, wait a minute, you spent $500 on that? Why did you do that? Well, no. You gave me the money so I can do with it what I want to. So this money was not given to them in the sense that you and I might give somebody some money. Yeah, they were managers. They're responsible. They have to answer for how that money has been developed or not developed, which says responsibility. They're what now? Yeah. Handling other people's money. Wow, that's scary. All right, good. Anyone else? And let's talk about the instructions that they were given regarding this money and their responsibility. What kind of instructions were they given? Put it to work. Okay. How do you put money to work? Most money I've seen, it just kind of sits there. You know, I mean, I take my change out of my pocket and put it on the thing I've got to hold my coins in, and I sleep all night, and I get up, and you know, there aren't any more pennies in there than there were when I went to bed. You invest it. Ooh. And there's many, many, many different ways to invest. But the point is this money is not to simply be buried. You know, every once in a while you run across something where somebody is looking for the buried treasure of Blackbeard the pirate, you know, or something like that. Well, of course, that would have increased in value simply because of our world and inflation. But we're not talking about a long enough period of time. Then you bury $100 worth of gold, and you dig it up a year from now, and you still got $100 worth of gold. In that culture, at that historical time, today it might be different. But put it to work. How do you put money to work? Invest it, but tell me more. You have to do something, don't you? You have to put yourself to work. To make my money grow or work, I have to buy something with it. I have to trade with something. I have to work to make the money to work. So again, he didn't say go down to the bank and put it in for interest. No, he said put it to work. And the implication there for me is you have to do something also. So what does the money represent? What? The talents. Okay, I like that. Deeds. Good. What else? Anything else? Yeah. Opportunity. And with that opportunity comes responsibility. So, another way of calling this or describing this money might be life, might be the connections we have with people, might be what can we do to make the crop grow and to bear fruit. You know, what opportunities do we have, and how are we using them? Opportunities and responsibilities.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Life.
Yeah.
He gave us life. Put it to work.
We all have opportunities. Some may have different opportunities than others, but we have our opportunities, whatever they are. And it's wrong for us to say, well, I can't do anything because I don't have as good as opportunities as that guy over there. Well, you're not going to be held responsible for him and his opportunities. You're going to be held responsible for your own opportunities and responsibility that you have there. So the money represents what God has given us and how we're going to put it to work for God. Your life. Yeah. We make choices all the time, and sometimes we don't even realize how harmful they are to us in our Christian example. Good. Anyone else? All right. Why may he have been hated by some servants? Jealousy. They didn't all get the same amount. All right. Anything else? Expected to be treated equal, okay? He's going to come back and outrank them. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Anyone else? Tell me about their relationship here with the nobleman. What did they do against the nobleman? Number 7.
What's in the delegation to tell him, we want you to be our king. That's also one of the issues that they had was he wanted them to elect him, and they didn't know that.
Okay. So it's pretty obvious at this point he's talking about the relationship that he has with the Jews. And you were about to say something over here? Yeah. Because we want our own king. We got somebody in mind, and probably each one of them thought it'd be me. I mean, they're all thinking that. What does it mean to overthrow the authority? All right, change of leadership. John? Okay, rebellious. Rebellious. Let's talk about that word just a second. What are we rebelling against? What's going on here? Okay. And when we rebel against something, now, granted, sometimes there's evil and we want to overthrow that. But much of the world is the rebellion is simply because somebody else wants the power. And in this case, they want the power for themselves. Everybody, and that's the culture of the world. We often talk about how today's world is very selfish. It's always been selfish. We're born selfish. We try to work ourselves out of that through Jesus Christ and learn to be unselfish. But the world that doesn't follow Jesus, they take a different path. So the rebellion is because I'm not getting my way. You have a little child, and what do you have to do? Yeah, he's going to get upset because he can't have a lollipop or a toy he wants, or if you've seen some of these kids in the grocery stores or the stores today when they can't have what they want, and they just basically explode. That's mankind in his relationship with God, wanting his way. So what these people are doing when they rebel against the nobleman, they're wanting their way. And see, that's an application that applies even to us today through all the history of the world.
But they were working with their own things. They were working with somebody else's stuff.
But you know, when you hold or have something long enough, you kind of get to feel like it's yours, right? Yeah. 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 And, that's one of the issues when you lend something to people. I knew a church that had a parking problem. and they asked a business that was near them, across the street or next door, may we use your parking lot on Sunday because your business is not open on Sunday. And he said, you may use my parking lot 51 Sundays a year. They said, 51? Why can't we use it 52 Sundays? He said, no, 51 Sundays. Well, why can't we use it that other Sunday? And he said, because I want you to remember who the lot belongs to. You know, there's some wisdom in that man's thinking, wasn't there? So, we have stuff long enough and we consider it ours. I had a professor went to hold a meeting for one of his former students, and he knew that when the student was in school, he had come to the professor's office and borrowed a book. And the professor went there and he was holding the meeting. He was in this former student's office, study at the church, and he was looking at his books, and he saw that book in there, and he pulled it out and opened up, and there was his name right there. But that preacher had had that book so long, who do you think it belonged to? It belonged to him. And that's the way we are, and that's what these people are like. It's mine because I've had it. And I had $1,000, and now I've made it worth $10,000. So it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Yeah. You just left the country. All right, next question. Examine the reasons or lessons for an equal amount of money being given to the servants. Or maybe we should say not being given. Did they all get the same money?
Well, hang on. Is it, the one in Matthew, it says he called 10 servants and gave, and it appears to each one of them, the minor. Yeah, yeah. The other parable, 10, 5, or 5,
Yeah.
2, and 0, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the point? What's the lesson? What do we can deduct from this? Mm-hmm.
and not engaging those. When we're so focused on those opportunities that we miss the ones that we've been given, and now we're like, oh, well, and you get like distracted, like we talked about. And now, not only do we miss those opportunities to use what we've been given, we're now so distracted with that. Now those have moved on to someone else because they picked it up, and now it just kind of misconstrues everything. It has made forward movement
All right.
anything.
All right, good. Anyone else?
I don't really know what he said, but it was the Lord knew the abilities of the servants, and he gave them according to their ability.
Yeah. Now, I would not say that in our life today that God limits your opportunities. In truth, I think he gives us more opportunities than we can handle. But if we don't handle them, if we don't have them, then we're not ever going to reach and stretch and try to grow and improve. Maybe let's just use numbers. Let's say you start out in life and you can handle 3 opportunities and God gives you 5. Well, you stretch and grow until eventually you're using 5 opportunities, but now he's giving you 8. And so you're continuing to stretch and grow so that yes, there, you don't get 100 dropped on you, that you can't handle and just go crazy about, but you can work for the Lord. And so whether we're talking about money that you're going to put to work or life that you're going to be engaged in, you have a purpose. Accept your responsibilities. Accept your opportunities. Be responsible for them. Use your life wisely. Anyone else? All right. Not overwhelmed. Okay. All right, what about the different results from equal opportunities? Talk about that. Good. And I think an important issue in this that Mike's talking about is we're not in competition with one another. Again, for illustration, let's say he gives each one of us 1,000 units of whatever. And we come back to give him what his stuff, and some of us have doubled it, some of us have tripled it, some of us have increased it about 50%. I'm not in competition with you, and you're not in competition with me. We have our opportunities, and we're trying to make them come to as good or as much as we can for our boss.
But even in today's business world, you always have some employees that will work harder, they have more of an aspiration to climb the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
That's just the fact of how workers work.
And sometimes you'll have a worker that is a hard worker, but for whatever reason, they don't have the particular skills or mindset, and they can't be as successful as someone else who's maybe working half as hard as they are, because there are just differences in people and in life. So yeah. Right. Yeah. I think another illustration would be IQ. Let's say you have a class full of students and you have most of them are around average IQ, 100, 110, somewhere in that neighborhood. But you got one that's got an IQ of 150. But their grades are less than the others because the others are working hard and studying, and the guy with the big IQ is not doing anything at all. Not turning in his homework, not paying attention during class. When they have a test, he blows it. That's what Mike's talking about. If you've got great success, but your success could have been 10 or 100 times that if you had applied yourself, then actually you have failed in comparison to what something else would be. But again, see, we're not in competition with one another. We're in competition with ourselves.
The guy that you're talking about, the one that had the ability but didn't use it, it sounds like the third guy in the story.
All right. All right, good. All right. That brings us to question 10. Compare the third servant to the other.
Charles, sometimes in the world today,
Yeah. If for some reason, I have an illustration I've talked about a lot of times. I was in school with a friend, and his mission, his goal was to become a principal. So he got his first job, and it just so happened at that church where he was attending, one of the members was on the school board. And in one church function early on, my friend told some kind of stupid joke or story. I don't know what it was, he never told me. But that school board member held that against him for the rest of his career, and he was never able to advance into becoming a principal. He was talented, believe me, he was talented. He had the high grades and had the work habit and everything else, but he could never make that step into his field because basically, and I think he was as much told that, So, yeah. Yeah. With God, in God's relationship. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. And if they perform above their expectations and far beyond what they've ever done, and they still come in third or fourth, they're winners. Yeah. Yeah. All right, anyone else? Okay. Why was the first, 11. How was the last servant judged? Ooh. It's like being on the stand and giving testimony, and all of a sudden you say something you shouldn't have said. Plead the fifth, yeah. You have the right to remain silent. By his own words. And that's what's going to happen, Anyone else want to elaborate on that?
Well, the last servant was told, put his money to work, and
He didn't do it.
he put it in a safe spot. He didn't do what he was told, so.
Yeah. He could have at least drawn interest, but no. Didn't do that. Identify why the first servant was given the third servant's mina. Money. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? It's good. Which is a way of saying if we do well in the Lord's kingdom, you will have additional opportunities. Now, that doesn't mean you're taking away somebody else's opportunity. It means when they don't do the work, hopefully the opportunities will flow in your direction. We had some guests Sunday, and they were very well received. People spoke to them, friendly to them. Now, I don't know if you had the opportunity to be a part of that or not, but that's just one little small illustration of where we can, reach out and respond to an opportunity. And hopefully that in life, maybe you missed that opportunity, but maybe someone else was able to pick it up and take care of it. Doesn't mean you're a bad person because you didn't speak to them, but I'm just telling you, it's as an illustration. But God's not going to punish you, but you're going to punish yourself when you miss the opportunities to do the good that you could have done. Analyze the phrase, to everyone who has, more will be given. which we already been talking about, but let's talk about it some more. Work for it, you deserve it, you're going to get more. All right, anybody else? Because you'd like to be one? Mm-hmm. Good. Anyone else? I read recently of I believe it was a basketball player, but I've seen it in football as well, that they were so good that the tendency was to just give him the ball and let him shoot. But he realized the other guys weren't getting the opportunities to shoot, so many times he would actually have a shot and he'd pass the ball off to someone else. Now, what does that do as far as the game is concerned and the psychology of the players? Raises the level of the team. All right, good. More balanced scoring. He doesn't seem like a ball hog that everybody's going to become to resent. And actually it'll give him more opportunities because now they don't just guard him, they got to guard the rest of the guys too. And I know you've probably seen some guys, like I've seen, in football, a guy runs out for a pass and he's got two guys guarding him. Why is that? Because that's how good he is. Okay. To everyone who has, more will be given. We're talking about opportunities. We're not talking about wealth. We're talking about the privilege of serving God. We're not talking about polishing our own star or becoming the hero. Anyone else? Yeah. Very good. Draw a comparison between verse 27 and the judgment. Okay. Good. Anybody else? Yeah, they're not going to just have their paycheck docked. They're going to lose their lives. Which says what? It's pretty serious. Yeah, it's pretty serious. This serving God thing is pretty serious. We need to get with it. We don't need to be rebelling against God. We need to be looking for the opportunities. Question 15. Each of the three servants received different amounts of money. We've talked about this. What does that represent? He recognized their ability. They had different talents. Yeah. What? Yeah. Several, I like that word in the several. It didn't say they were one talent people. They had several abilities. So they got more than one talent. I've heard people use that as an excuse for not doing anything. Well, I'm a one talent person. I can't do anything. You're putting yourself down. You're making an excuse. I think in terms of like walking through a bed of flowers. Some people walk through a bed of flowers and they don't see anything. Others walk through a bed of flowers and they can collect a bouquet. So sometimes it's our eyes that need to be open for the opportunities that are there. All right, Matthew 25:19. Somebody read that out loud for us.
After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them.
Message there? What does that say to you? What does it suggest? Yeah, we're going to have the books audited. Yeah. I don't know really about an audit, but I know it's where they figure out everything and says, you have been spending $100,000 a year on business trips to Hawaii. How important is that to this, business of collecting aluminum cans or whatever? Yeah, okay. You're going to have to answer for what you've done with your life and the opportunities that you've had and missed and overlooked, and disregarded. Now, I think that's a good concept. We see sometimes people claim one thing and they play the video and no, that's not what happened. You didn't do what you said you did. You did the opposite. And they can't deny it. On the judgment, we're not going to be able to make excuses and deny to God that we did or didn't do something. It's going to be what it is. There'll be a video. God will be able to play that back. Say, well, here's what I saw. What about the different judgment on the servants who did not perform? Did every servant get the same judgment? And that standard was to use their opportunities and abilities. All right. All right. You're not going to be judged with the same judgment as, say, the Apostle Paul or the Apostle Peter. Why? Well, I'm guessing we think they've got more talents and abilities and opportunities than we had. So I'm glad in a way that's not going to happen. I'd hate to be compared to one of the spiritual giants that we read about in the Bible and say, well, you didn't measure up to Abraham. So, well, wait a minute. That was Abraham. No, I never said I was measuring up to Abraham. Now, the assumption is that if someone is in that position, they have gotten there because of training or skills or abilities, dedication, commitment, whatever you care to say. And I would think that if the world came to an end right as someone had been baptized, that they're not going to be compared to someone who's been an elder for 20 years or someone who's been a preacher for 40 years. Yes.
What do you think would happen if he would have taken the money and given it to the money changer and would have come back with 50 cents?
Yeah.
What do you think that would have said?
Well, I don't know that he would have been as excited, but he would have been at least glad there was some growth.
He would have said, you did what I told you to
Yeah.
do. And I think we sometimes get a little too picky on this parable, thinking that the judgment is going to be, okay, well, you had 7 talents and you only used 5, you had 10 talents and you
Yeah.
only used 5. Now, that's not our judgment. The judgment is going to be, did you do what I told you to do?
Or even,
Really, the judgment is going to be, were you walking with me?
yeah. You did something.
And if you were, then you're going to be said, well, you did what I asked you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't,
Not been the best Christian. You may not have been the best servant, but you were my servant.
yeah.
You were a Christian. Because, I think we get a little picky sometimes.
Yeah. And the fact that he gave them different talents according to their different abilities indicates that. We're-
We're thinking judgment as in, oh, we're going to be on the fly. Not us. The judgment is, are you in Christ?
yeah.
If the answer is yes, you're guilty, but you've been redeemed.
All right.
We think of a trial when we say judgment.
Mhm.
Judgment is when they come back when the guy's got the thing that says you're guilty, and the judge says, because you're guilty, this is what's going to happen. We're going to thank God, and the judgment is, you're guilty. But you're one of my children.
Yeah.
You're my son. You entered into the kingdom.
The one who got the harsh judgment were those who rebelled and had their, they were the ones that had their lives taken. And that's the judgment of, I would assume, damnation, separation from God for all eternity. But again, I think the issue that we keep talking about here is we all have opportunities that are God-given, and we have to use them. We need to use them. It's our responsibility to do that, yes.
So all of these were servants of the king. Alright, so, the one that squandered the honey, like he knew, like he had accepted, because that would be, if putting it in aspect of what we are now, right, in correlation of who we are now. That would be like a Christian that is full, I got my gift, holding on to it now, on judgment. What did you do with it?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you really serve me? Or did you really serve me? Or now, congratulations, you're not one of my children. Now, like, heart,
Yeah, I think the issue in that case is someone who squandered his opportunities. That indicates more than just missing opportunities. That indicates a part of the rebellion. And so someone in that situation has turned against God. Turned their back on God, maybe is a better word. All right. Thank you so much for your participation. Appreciate it very much. You've got the question sheets for next week. Did I have enough? Okay, good. Again, thank you very much. The tabernacle is trailers in the parking lot. We're going to be beginning to put that together and put it up. in the morning at 9 o'clock, so if you're going to come, please come early. And we need all the manpower we can get. It's not hard work, but it requires a lot of bodies, hold this rope, that kind of thing.